Actor and writer Jon Glaser discusses comedy and his career.
Let's welcome Jon Glaser.
Hold my jacket. What? This is a cinnamon bun. Don't eat it. Don't eat that cinnamon bun.
Let the
My
record
shoes are
show.
drying. Sorry. Went for a run this morning. I was going to wear these, and they were sweaty and wet. So I'm going to let them keep drying out. Pretty sweet pair of Hoka trail shoes. I'm not sponsored by them. I just like them. So, I got some great hiking boots, but I don't know if they're great for all day. I'm going to get too warm in them, so.
Testing them out, though.
Yeah, maybe I'm going to switch in the middle. There might be a shoe switch in the middle of this. We'll see. There might not. But,
You'll be cooler.
okay. Okay. Here we go.
All right, so speaking of shoes, we'll use that as a segue. Speaking of shoes, you're a U of M graduate.
But also, you might be right.
These are your old stomping grounds.
Correct.
Not specifically the public library, though.
Not so much.
Okay.
And I don't even mean that as a criticism or an insult. I just never got here that much.
Yeah.
I was more at the Ugly
Yeah.
and the Glee. Would they just call it the Glee, the graduate library? Did that have a fun name? I don't know.
I don't think it did.
But yeah, I don't think I ever got here much until my stepdad started working here.
That's right, because you are part of the Ann Arbor District Library extended family.
Yes.
So John's stepdad, Ira, worked here for years and years and years and years. And we hassled him for years and years and years and years to invite his famous stepson. And we're so excited to have you here today.
Very
Yeah.
happy to be here.
So not to publicly shame you, but you were going to come here in September for an event. And then all of a sudden you had to
Correct.
cancel, and you had to cancel for work.
Well, yes. I had to cancel for work, and not to publicly shame you,
Yes.
but even if I had come, it was going to be canceled anyway because there was some shit backed up in the toilet. Right?
Septic emergency.
Okay. It's all semantics.
So what was work?
So if anything, I'm glad we canceled because it wouldn't have been a waste of time. I was coming here to see a Michigan game with my son, who is eating the cinnamon bun I just told him not to eat, and making a lot of noise with the bag. No, I don't care. I'm a great dad.
Let the record show.
Yeah, so I got a job that came up out of the blue, which rarely even happens, but we had to cancel that weekend. But thankfully it all worked out because we came in for the Ohio State game, even though that game was rough.
Yeah.
Rough finish. Whatever, they're not that good. They were overhyped anyway, which is fine. They're still a good team, but I thought it was even closer than it was going to be. I thought they were going to get really destroyed. First quarter was awesome, and then it was like, oh boy. But whatever, no complaints. I think they're still good.
Okay. Okay. So that hasn't
Well, everyone's like,
Turn you
Harbaugh's gotta
off.
go. It's like, that's so stupid.
Are you a lifelong sports fan?
Yes.
Is it all sports, or it's the Wolverines and nothing else matters, or?
No, it's all like Michigan and Detroit. Like even I lived in New York almost as long as I lived in Michigan growing up, which is very strange. Just getting old is also it's just weird. But being in one place for that long, I think in a couple of years I'll have lived there longer than I lived here. But I never have felt like a New York sports fan, and I like wearing my Detroit Tigers hat everywhere, especially when they played the Yankees in the playoffs and beat them. It was just the best. Like, I just remember walking my dog, and I had my Tigers hat on. I think this was 2006 or maybe 9, and you're gonna get swept, and then the Tigers killed it. So enjoyable. But I tried maybe up until my son was 5. I did try to brainwash him on Detroit sports, Red Wings pajamas and whatever, and then felt like I can't do that. And he slowly gravitated towards, I was successful in steering him clear of becoming a Yankees fan.
Okay, that's a
That would
close
have been
one.
really tough for me because I just despise that team. But even that's not fair. But the Mets were really good in 2015, so we went to a couple games and he was really into it, but now he likes Aaron Judge. Can't blame him. He's fun to watch, and the Yankees are less hateable now. So, and they've got sweet uniforms, classic, beautiful, everything. So, whatever. Who gives a shit, right? Sports. I mean, I love sports, and they're so stupid, even though they're also not. But anyway, yes, I like sports.
So, writer, producer, actor, director, all the things. And talk about how you got started. I talk about where you thought you were going to be.
Sure.
Go for it.
Where do you want me to start?
When you were born,
Well, I mean,
but you performed in college a little bit.
Yes,
A lot.
I went to Michigan and was very excited to go here and was glad I got in and all that. And because we were just talking about this with my mom, like I applied to Michigan State, Wayne State, and Michigan. And I wasn't, not to sound like a jerk, but I wasn't worried about State and Wayne State. And I got into both, and it was more like, all right, great, I got in. Yeah, I figured I would. All right, I don't want to go there, but it's good to know that I have a school to fall back on. And I found out about Michigan last, and it was one of those kind of, getting the envelope. Is it thin or is it thick?
Right.
Is there a lot of paper in there or just a single piece of paper saying sorry? And it felt like this is a little substantial. It doesn't feel like one piece of paper in there. I think it's more. I don't want to get overly excited. Open it. And then, the first thing I see is, congratulations, and that was all I needed to see, and I was so excited. So yeah, I went here, I didn't know what I was going to do, quite honestly. I knew I wanted to pursue comedy. I didn't want to get a theater degree. It just didn't seem right. It didn't seem practical, but I didn't really know what else to major in. I took a bunch of acting classes here, but I did not get a theater major.
What's your degree?
Communications.
Yeah.
Just super generic.
And he's doing it right now, ladies and gents.
Yeah. So it was a pretty generic degree, but I took a lot of theater classes and took a philosophy class my senior year that I really loved and maybe would have majored in that had I done it sooner, but whatever. I don't have any regrets about how it all worked out. But yeah, so I did, there's a comedy show here. I don't know if it still happens. It was called Comedy Company, really terrible name. But there was a sketch show, and I auditioned for it and got to do it and did that for a few years, and it was really fun. Did a little bit of stand-up here as well, but I don't really do a lot of that. That's not mostly what I do. I'll perform at comedy shows here and there, but less traditional, not at stand-up clubs, bars or places like that are a little non-traditional and I hate the word alternative comedy, but that was more or less what I was doing in New York and still do every now and then. But anyway, I did theater, a little bit of theater here as far as classes, did this comedy show, took a year off of school and traveled with some of those people where we did, and this is dating myself, this is 89, 90, and I took my senior year off, and there's no internet, there's no computers, so we pretty much did a very grassroots tour where we bought, I remember, a big, thick book of financial aid from a bookstore. Or maybe the library we took it out, I can't remember. And so we really just went through and put together a list of schools and just called so many numbers and called the financial aid departments, started there, and it was, yes, can you put us in touch with your entertainment division? And so sometimes it took 3, 4 calls to finally get in touch with the right person, and then many times it was, oh, we don't have the budget, or we're not booking any more shows. So tons of phone calls until we finally put together sort of a somewhat decent tour across the country. We rented apartments in, oh man, I can't remember where they were, Eisenhower, is that what you said? Like way off campus. We all lived there, and it was a bunch of people from the show. Some people were seniors and had graduated. Some people, like myself, took a year off. So we put together our own tour and we called it's just the worst name. We were called Just Kidding. Just a painfully bad name for our group. But, oh God. But it was a really fun year, and we rented this 15-passenger van, and we did tons of teeny schools like South Dakota School of Mines and Technology, and Small schools like that, which were really fun to do, sometimes for 4 people, sometimes for a room like this. So we'd get decent-sized crowds and teeny crowds. Bigger schools like Notre Dame was maybe the biggest school we played on the tour, and drove all across the country. And it was really fun.
Yeah.
And a cool way to take a year off and even just to see the country. I had seen a lot of the United States already. When I was 15, I did this Western trip with the camp I was in. And we drove in a modified school bus all across the West and did backpacking trips. It was incredible. But that year off was really fun as far as doing this comedy show with friends. And then I went back and finished my senior year and graduated in 91 and then moved to Chicago that fall. Because my mom ended up getting me tickets to the Second City. I'm doing this because she's sitting right there. She got me tickets to see the Second City touring company, which I saw my senior year of high school. And so that really made me want to pursue that as well. It was just, to go from wanting to maybe do comedy to see something that you really respond to and that I really wanted to do. And so I moved to, it was actually the halfway point. I'll probably start crying. Just because it was a pivotal, life-changing moment. Like halfway through my senior year, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. What am I going to do when I graduate? And I knew I wanted to try Second City, so I called the theater just to see if they ever had auditions for their companies. And they said, we don't do auditions for the main stage. They have, at the time, 3 stages there. The main stage, something called the Second City ETC, which is right next door. And then they had one in the suburbs at the time, which is no longer there. But they always have auditions for the touring company. 2 or 3 times a year, maybe. So halfway through my senior year, I took the train from Ann Arbor to Chicago and stayed with a friend of mine that was living there. Had never really done improv, hadn't studied it, had done a bunch of these sketch shows and a little bit of stand-up, so had a little bit of experience. But I remember I didn't have an extensive resume, and I remember just like maybe 2 or 3 things, but I gave him like a lot of bullet points, to try to just make it physically look longer. Right. Improv, part of rehearsals and blah, 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 blah. And then I didn't have a headshot. And again, this is not like digital camera, click, plug into your computer, print it, done. This was, 35 millimeter camera and taking a roll of film in my apartment over on North Thayer and taking all the lamps in our apartment because I really couldn't afford to do a professional headshot. So we just took all the lamps in our apartment, gathered them in the corner, and took some shitty headshot. And I must have it in a box somewhere, but you can't really, you'd have to look for it. But I was holding one of the lamps. And so, it's not like the headshot was framed here, so you don't see an arm sticking up and then cut off. But you can sort of tell that if you really look, you can see my shoulders like this, like right here in the picture, and I'm just, holding a lamp shining on my face. So did this like an overnight at some photo studio or photo processing place. So I take this headshot and this resume, headshot 8x10, resume 8.5x11. Didn't even think to cut it down to match and staple it together, hand them in separately. I just don't know what I'm doing. And I remember the audition was at the theater. This is probably going to take up the whole time of this thing, just telling the story. But the audition's at the theater, and there's all these people there that just look like they know what they're doing. They just look really cool, like actors. And I don't know what I'm doing. So I was basically just tucking in my shirt, Timmy, and taking off my hat to go for the audition. And I had this old bike hat that said Chinelli, which is, they make bicycle parts. So I took off my hat and tucked in my Gap shirt to my Gap jeans and these ugly mustard yellow jeans and one of those light denim shirts. Ugh, just awful. But no judgments for anyone. So doing the audition, I remember hearing, you're on the stage of the main theater. The audience seats are dark, but there's all the producers and directors, maybe 10 people, but it's very intimidating if it's your first time doing this, which mine was. And I remember hearing this voice from the dark, "Whose is this?" And I'm not making fun, this is just how she talks. "Whose is this? The one that's not stapled together, different sizes?" I was like, "It's mine." Do the audition best I can. It was all improv games, and then they did some Q&As and things and some improv scenes. And it lasted 10, 15 minutes, and then I went to the lobby, and I'm basically just had my duffel bag and my jacket. I had this long, like, quadrophenia-style army coat that I loved, and I wish I still had it, and my duffel bag of stuff, and I'm just in the lobby, like, untucking my shirt, putting on my hat, and getting ready to leave, and this woman comes out. I can never get through the story.
Oh, man. Oh, but his mom's here, so she's got his back.
So, and it's the same woman. She's like, can I talk to you? It's the same woman that went, who says this? She's like, can I see you? She's like, hey, can I see you in my office for a minute? I'm like, sure. Trying to play it cool, and in my head, like, oh my God, what's about to happen? Who is this person? I'm gonna have to drop out of school, you know, having no idea. So, sorry. That was hilarious. So I go with this woman, and I follow her into her office, and her. Just trying to collect myself so I can get through it. Her name is Joyce Sloane. She's no longer alive. She was like the main producer at the theater. Worked with all the like old legendary people at this theater. Just the sweetest woman in the world, so friendly, completely disarming, couldn't have been nicer, not intimidating at all. Like, you know, she's just so complimentary, you know, I like your audition, you're very funny, you definitely need some training, but, you know, stay in school, finish school, don't break your mom's heart, you know, asking, do you know Gilda Radner? Because she was from the Detroit area, just making small talk and just putting me at ease. So encouraging, here's my card, call me when you graduate. I'm like, holy shit. So just so thrilled. Again, I don't have a cell phone, I can't like call them, oh my God, you can't. But it was just cloud nine. And so, changed my life. I knew right then, I'm like, I'm gonna move to Chicago and take their classes and do what I try to get in their theater. So I took the train back to Ann Arbor and told my family what happened. It was so exciting, finished school, worked all summer, saved money, and moved there in October. Started taking their classes. They have a training center they do where you can take classes. It lasts, you can do it as long or as short as you want. The full class takes like a year where they have different levels and you're just learning improv. I moved there in October, and I think maybe later in November I just was thinking like, she didn't really mean call me, right? She was just being nice. But I saved that card, I still have it, and I just thought, I'm gonna call. Maybe whatever, I just decided to actually call, and I'm like, remember calling and like, what am I doing? She couldn't possibly have meant to really call, she was just, but they picked up, hello, hi, Second City, hi, Joyce Sloane, please, who's calling? Jon Glaser, hold. I'm on hold thinking I'm either gonna get that same person who picked up the phone, yeah, can I take a message, or get her, who is this? And she picks up the phone, hi, John, how are you? And I don't think she was even bullshitting me. She totally remembered me. And it was just a quick phone call of, well, I said, yeah, I finished school and I moved here and I'm doing the classes and he's told me to give you a call and I'm just calling you, and I didn't even know what to say. And she went, well, that's great. Good luck with the classes and hope it goes well. And that was it. But again, couldn't have been nicer. And then as I did the classes for about a year. I was working at a restaurant as a host at some place called Tucci Benucci.
It's better than just kidding.
Yeah, barely. Some like fake sounding Italian name. Tons of actors working there, really nice people. The managers were great, really fun. And I auditioned, I think, one more time for a touring company and didn't get it again. And then the third time I auditioned, I think I auditioned early on being there that first year, and then after a year and a half, I got hired for the touring company, and then it was just so cool to go meet Joyce. At that point, she was sort of the producer emeritus, where she was not officially the producer, but still there in an unofficial capacity and weighing in on hires and all that. And just such a thrill to get to actually talk to her and tell her that story and how much it meant to me. And she couldn't have been nicer. And so many people tell the same stories about how she would just help people out when they were broke or down or whatever. Just a wonderful person and so entrenched in the Chicago theater community and the community in general. So I know that's a long story, but that's kind of just really a big part of how I got my start, because it just, I think about it all the time. Just, that just went from what am I going to do to now I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it was thanks to her encouragement and kindness and my
it seems
talent.
like a lot.
So to shorten the story, I did touring company for about a year and a half. Then I got to understudy some of the shows, which is part of being in the touring company. It's a lot of traveling around the Midwest, a couple cool trips here and there. I got to go to Alaska, which was incredible. A week in Alaska and a week in the Northwest. Just what a cool trip. And then I was in Chicago about 4.5 years total. So I did touring company for about a year and a half. Had the very good fortune of understudying two incredible people, Scott Adsit, who you may know, and Stephen Colbert, who at the time was doing one of the main stage shows, and he was very heavy in the show, meaning he had a lot of parts in a lot of scenes, and he got hired to do, I think, Exit 57 very early on in the run of this particular main stage show. So I got to come in and do, as an understudy, you get to do a show here and there.
Yeah.
And I got to do it. I didn't officially join the cast, but I got to do several months of being on stage almost every night. And it was just an incredible stroke of luck to be auditioning this guy at this time. And then still working with Steve Carell was in this cast. There's other people whose names you don't know that were all just incredibly funny. And it was just very fortunate for me. And the guy that directed that show just liked what I did and ended up 2 shows later putting me in that cast. So that was my trajectory through Second City, was just getting lucky to understudy a lot and then get right into a main stage show. The ETC stage that I mentioned, which is right next door, which is why I'm doing this, because the main stage was here and the ETC was here. A much smaller stage, which is with a smaller audience, but still plenty. That wasn't like, oh, I didn't make it. It was a great stage that you could even do like weirder, cooler shows, because the main stage got to be very touristy, and you maybe couldn't do as weird, crazy comedy that people like myself might like to do. Although the main stage show that I did, we really kind of broke the form. Traditionally, Second City was, a very cabaret-style show, like lights up, sketch, lights down, piano player playing in between each one. And we did more of a long-form show, which was from a lot of the improv, the longer-form improv that I did. There was a place called Improv Olympic, which is still there. Also has a place in LA, which is where a lot of people that are my contemporaries trained. And that was more long-form improv, which is where the lights just never come down. You're just weaving scenes in and out. People are on the back line while people are doing scenes, and you might come up and edit and start a new scene. It's much more involved than that, but we tried to do a Second City show like that, which some people were not happy about, like more of the old guard at the theater were like, don't do this. They do that at this other theater. Right. But this guy named Del Close, who's sort of an improv guru and a legend in the Chicago improv theater community, he performed at Second City and ended up breaking off and doing this different form. So it was still, they're all tied together, but we did a show that was different, which was really cool to do. And I would have been perfectly happy doing a more traditional Second City style review show, but it was really cool to do this show. I thought it was really good. Great people in the cast, and so from there, if you want to interrupt, and I'm sort of just rambling.
Let me jump in because I wanted. I didn't realize you had such a deep improv background. So now on your shows that you created, co-created, and write, do you leave a little room for improv in there?
Yeah, they're mostly scripted, but everything I do is informed by improv. Listen, I never considered being a writer ever. It was never.
Really?
Ever on my mind. I always viewed myself as a performer, an actor. I don't even like saying actor, and even like comedian, because for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem right. To me, I just feel like more of a performer, because I just do different things. I like doing acting, and I like doing dramatic acting. I like doing comedic acting. I do like doing stand-up. It's not so much joke telling that I do. But anyway, I'll just skip ahead again. Like after Second City, I got hired on the Dana Carvey Show. And the way that happened was I auditioned for SNL in the summer of '95, didn't get it, but this guy named Robert Smigel, who was a longtime SNL writer, the first head writer at Conan, became the executive producer at Dana Carvey Show. And he had access to all the SNL audition tapes just because he was friends with Lauren and worked there for years. And so he was watching a lot of them just to see the people they didn't hire and who else to look out for. And he saw mine and he liked it. And he was friends with my director of my Second City show and just said, tell Jon that we liked his audition and to do a lot of the same stuff because we liked that. And so so I did it, didn't get hired for Dana Carvey, but they did offer me a writing job. And it was, again, nothing I'd ever thought about pursuing. Didn't consider myself a writer. But when this came up, and if it was some other job, I may have just said, no, I don't want to pursue that. I want to be an actor. But this one, I felt like I can't turn it down. There's too many cool people involved. Now it's unfortunate, the whole Louis C.K. story. I mean, it's shocking and horrible. But at the time, he was the head writer, and he still was a very talented and is a very talented comedian. So he was the head writer at the time, a guy named Dino Stamatopoulos, who was an original Conan writer, Mr. Show head writer, super funny guy, Moral Oral, if you know that show. A guy named Mike Stoyanov. Anyway, it was I couldn't pass it up. I just remember going back to Chicago and just trying to write sketches, which I'd never done. But it's one of those things, what you were saying as far as improv, I'd never thought of it that way until I started doing it, where when you're improvising, you're basically spontaneously writing. You're creating and coming up with content as you're on stage. But I just never viewed it that way. So when I sat down to write, I just tried to think of it, just pretend I'm in a scene and what is the next person going to say, and just that's how I sort of started writing. And so even now when I write, and I write with other people, and I prefer it to be collaborative most of the time, but I just lean on improv as my background for when I'm writing. So it almost just, I think of it in those terms most of the time. So it is a big part of it, and it's the greatest thing that ever happened to me, getting that writing job, because it just opened up a whole other world of opportunities for work. Once I got the Dana Carvey job, I ended up doing several writing jobs before I got back into acting, which was always my plan. Even with Dana Carvey Show, it was always, this is cool, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to be an actor, and still kind of arrogant about it. But that's what I wanted to do, and it's what I prefer doing. But I've been very fortunate to have made several shows that are my own, where I can also write them, and it's good fortune, and it's really fun, and anyway.
So you take a breath for a second, and you directed a music video for Bob Mould, and it's pretty great. So we have a clip that we were going to show, if we can make that happen.
Here's a song I'm going to do for my future wife. What are you up to, you blob? What's your favorite type of pig?
Oh, look at that.
They're so cute together.
Yeah, I know. Gavin's so good with younger kids.
What are you doing?
I'm really glad we did this.
Me too.
It's weird, though. It just seems like it was yesterday, being in a band, driving around in a van.
Yeah. Hitting every single gay bar in Europe.
Phew. Hitting on dudes. Now we're dads.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, check that out.
Oh.
It's very cool.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late.
Oh, hey, Jon. Where's Josh?
Josh isn't gonna be here. Karen wants a divorce. She kicked me out last night. I spent the night in my car.
Oh, Jon, that's terrible.
Are you okay? I mean, is Josh okay? I mean, should we reschedule this thing?
Oh, no. I mean, I'm fine. Josh is gonna be fine. Karen and I are working out the visitation rights. I don't know, something inside tells me that this is for the best. Hey, kids!
Hey, Jon!
Oh,
Jon.
I think we should reschedule this.
No. I'm a pro. I can do this.
Is that Gatorade?
No, it's a Bloody Mary. Gatorade should make a Bloody Mary flavor, though. I'd buy it.
What's floating in it?
Are you deaf? It's a Bloody Mary. It's celery.
What's up with your hair?
Oh, I got a perm. You know, it's, figure I'm a new single dad. I should probably have a new look to go with it. Oh, come on, guys. Let's get it together, all right? Everything's cool. It's the first annual Bring Your Kids to Work Day.
So sad.
But a Bloody Mary in a squeezy bottle just seems like that's, who wouldn't need it?
It was fun. It was very cool getting to do that. That whole thing, like, I don't direct a lot of stuff, but I directed the pilot for Delocated, and that's probably it. I mean, really, it was one of those things where, and then I directed some web videos, and I mean, getting to do that was one of the coolest things I've gotten to do, just meeting a rock hero like Bob Mould, I mean, was still super cool, and it was, I had worked with his manager, or worked with somebody, we did a live Delocated show at this festival in San Francisco, and I wanted to do, I did a bunch of live Delocated shows, and if you don't know Delocated, it was about a guy in the witness protection program who has a reality show about himself, and he wears a ski mask and alters his voice to keep his identity hidden. He still wants to be famous and be on TV, but he wants to protect his anonymity. So, it's this kind of voice. So I would host the show as that character and use a voice modulator for the microphone, and I thought it'd be funny to have musicians or bands perform and wear a ski mask and have their voices modulated. And most people were game for it. It was really fun. I mean, we had, and got very lucky with some cool performers, like Ben Gibbard did one, Carl Newman, who's from the band New Pornographers, and if you don't know them, they're awesome. And then Bob did it at the same festival in San Francisco, and that was one of the, even like with Ben and Carl, they played solo acoustic, and it almost sounded really beautiful, like this kind of, it was just awesome sounding. And the Bob Mould one, he's already playing loud, and it's just noise. It was like, it was so funny. And then I'm sure some people were pissed, because it's just, you come to see someone like him and you can't even hear his voice. But that to me was half the fun of it. But so there, his manager, and then I kind of know the head of their label who's in the band Superchunk, who their drummer Jon Worster is also in. And so they asked me to direct a video, and I just said, I would love to, but I have not directed a lot, as long as you're cool with that. And they were fine. And the DPs always are very helpful, and I just made sure I told them, like, wherever you think I'm not doing something right, just don't feel free to let me know. I'm not going to be offended. And it was so fun to do, and I thought it turned out pretty good and fun to make. And that's all the guys in the band. Jason Narducci is the bass player, awesome bass player, super funny guy, as is Jon Worster, the drummer. That's the real band. It wasn't actors. Jon, if you don't know Jon Worster, this guy Tom Sharpling and Jon Worster, I highly recommend you look him up. Tom Sharpling does a radio show on FMU in New Jersey, and they just started doing comedy bits. And Tom plays himself as a straight man, and Jon calls in and does all these funny characters, and he's hilarious, and he's a great performer. So it just turned out pretty good, but it was a cool thing to get to do.
Were those their kids?
No.
Just spare kids?
Yeah, we got friends to donate their children to the cause, and yeah, it was really fun to do. It was anyway, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. So
a real highlight.
That's awesome. And you obviously have a deep love for music, because your book is My Dad Was in ZZ Top, and is about...
And it's come full circle, because now my dad really is dead. Thank you.
But the premise of the book...
It's okay.
The premise of the book...
It's part of life.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I had done this comedy bit years ago where, and I can't remember how I thought of it, but I thought it would be, it was a thing where the premise was, and I had done this on stage several times before the book, where the premise was that my dad had just passed away, and at the time he was alive, but I'd go on stage and I would very dryly and dramatically just talk about, my dad passed away, and we didn't have a close relationship, and I went back to Michigan to settle his estate, and I'm going through his stuff, and I kind of got to know him through his possessions. I'm going through boxes and finding old photos and diaries and things like that, and that was how I got to know my dad, was through this profound experience of his things. This is all not true. But I said this on stage and treated it very seriously. And I said, one of the things I found out about him that I never knew and that he never cared to share with me was that he was in ZZ Top. And not one of the three guys we know, he's not one of the guys with the beards, but he was in an original incarnation of the band. They had 4 guys, and he was in an early version of this band until he quit. And he wrote all these letters to the guys in the band over the whole trajectory of his, from joining the band to quitting. And so I read all the letters out loud, and it's all about being really psyched to join the band, and then, then being disillusioned and not enjoying the direction they're going. They were originally a soul fusion band, and now they're going to play this like Tex-Mex rock, and he just doesn't like that. He doesn't like the idea of the manicured beards, doesn't like the name ZZ Top, doesn't understand what it means, and then just gets progressively more disillusioned with the direction. Then he eventually quits. And so that was the bit, and I always liked it and always thought it would be a funny thing just to see in print, in addition to reading it live. And this is even way before Facebook and social media, and I thought maybe I'll start a website and put it up in print. And then I just went further and decided to pitch it as a book. Thought of more ideas for the book that I could put together a short pitch. One was, I had Prince keep a diary about a week with the new, talking about his, it was a chef, it was the chef for the new power generation. Talking about how, it was very difficult to cater to Prince and his ever-changing needs and all that stupid shit. So yeah, I just got very lucky that somebody responded. Most of the publishers it was pitched to said no, and thankfully one person said yes. I remember going to bookstores and feeling like, if this doesn't get made, I'll be crushed, just from the standpoint of like, look at all these books. I mean, there's got to be so much garbage, and they're going to say no to this, and whatever. So. Again, another super cool thing that I got to do was just to make a book. And it was really fun to also make it, because it became almost more of an art project, because there was a lot of, hand-done physical work made. So the premise of the book, if you ever see it, is it's all, there's the letters, which I wrote myself and, crumpled them and make them look old. But then I basically asked a bunch of friends to help do it, where I would tell them we'd meet for lunch, and I'd buy them lunch, and then they would do the thing. One might be writing something down on a napkin. One might be like a set list. So just to have different physical handwriting, because I wasn't going to be able to fake all this different, just different aesthetics, and the way different, the way everyone draws is different. So it was really cool to see all these different pieces, and it just gave it more of an authentic feel. And then a friend of mine who's a graphic designer helped with a lot of it. And I think it turned out pretty cool, just because there's a lot of interesting looking things, and I think it's funny, but It was nice to get to do. I mean, getting to write a book was also a cool highlight like this, as opposed to all the general, more traditional like TV writing and comedy and acting that I do. So
this is a dumb question, and I wish that I could make it sound less dumb. But is being on TV fun? Is making it fun? Like, is it fun to get recognized? Is it awful to get recognized? What do you get recognized for? Is it fun?
For the most part, it's certainly, well, as far as is getting to do TV stuff fun, I mean, for the most part, yes, and I say that because I think I've been lucky to get to mostly do fun projects. Most of them have been mine, and that's very good fortune. There's always going to be times, like any field, where you take a job, and you're taking the job because you need the job.
Right.
And that also happens in TV, where you'll take an acting job, and it's on some not a good show, and it's just not fun, but you make the best of it. And then you get a job. Even, and I've had some of the TV writing jobs I had where the show was terrible and the job was so much fun just because the people are great. And, a good example of that, and this is just an example about, more often than not, just work and take a job, and because you don't know what that job is going to lead to down the road. You might work with someone on a lousy job, and down the road they're in a position to give you a job on something else that's great. And that probably happens all the time with many fields, but for me it was, one writing job in particular that was just not a good show, and even the day-to-day was not that fun, but what's that? I don't want to say. I mean, it doesn't matter. I just hate saying negative stuff about it, because it was still in many ways a fun job. And one of the guys I met, one of the other writers, is this guy named Vernon Chapman, who's part of this group called PFFR, and they make, if you don't know their stuff, they're brilliant people. It's Vernon Chapman, John Lean, this woman, Allison Levy. They made Wonder Showzen. They made this show called, Wonder Showzen was on MTV2, one of the funniest shows I've ever seen and been lucky to be a part of in a small way. It's like a fake kid show, and they're so brilliantly smart guys and woman, Allison. I mean, they're just incredibly creative and funny as hell, great writers. And so I met Vernon on one of these shitty writing jobs, and down the road just, came back, and they became a production company where they started producing other people's shows as well. So when that happened, I was just starting to pitch Delocated and hired them because it had a built-in writing team with me and John and Vernon, and the three of us have basically written all the shows I've done. My name ends up being on the credits as written by Jon Glaser, but rarely is it just me? It's me writing the scripts alone. Me and John and Vernon come up with all the content together. We'll come up with all the ideas for the episodes and all the outlines together, and then I'll do the physical script writing, but then I'll show that draft to them, and we'll just keep working on it together with notes and ideas and changes, and they're very involved in the process of creating all the shows. John ended up directing a lot of Delocated, directed Neon Joe, pilot and first season. So that part can be fun if you're doing enjoyable jobs. And then as far as like getting recognized, I mean, I could take it or leave it. It's fun when it happens as long as it's not too aggressively annoying of a person like, come here, man. You know, you get a lot of that, but it doesn't happen to me a lot, and I prefer it that way.
Do they ask you to say that they got jammed?
It happens every now and then.
Does
It's
it?
fine. It's like, that's something, that's like getting
But everyone
mad.
thinks they've made it up. Like, they're like, I'm
I don't
so
think,
original.
no one thinks they're coming up with it for the first time. It's just fun. I mean, I'd be the same way. If you see someone you like, it's kind of exciting, and I just don't get mad about that because it's kind of funny. And, you know, if it was happening to me constantly, like if someone and I have friends that are super famous, and I can't even imagine that life. I think it would be really difficult. So thankfully it doesn't happen much, and it's usually not that big a deal. Most people are pretty kind about it, and I wouldn't get mad about it because it's just, you know, you're thankful for fans, and you're not going to do what you do without that part of it. So, but after this, just everyone leave me alone.
Be cool, guys. Be cool.
My family's here.
So it's cool you mentioned that you've got like a writing team on some of your projects, because we had noticed some themes in some of your more recent work that has like, you know, in like Delocated, Neon Joe, Jon Glaser Loves Gear, things that we keep seeing again and again. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. Can you talk about Jon Glaser Loves Gear for a minute?
Sure.
What is it? Because, okay, so
It's a great question.
I
don't know if I have an answer for it.
So, okay, like the title says what it is. Jon Glaser Loves Gear. You're in it. You're Jon Glaser. You love gear. Gear being like high-tech camping stuff, like a extremely specific single-use tool or thing that is like not necessary to anything, but is cool.
Right.
And it seems, so do you actually love gear as much as Jon Glaser on the show? Or are you actually as much of a jerk as Jon Glaser on the show? Or where's the line? Where's reality?
I don't know. Well, I would like to think that I'm not that big of a jerk. We were joking during the pilot of the Gear show that it felt like Delocated without the ski mask. Where I'm basically playing this asshole, and now I'm doing it and basically playing myself. And it really sometimes gets very uncomfortable, and sometimes I do feel like, is this real? Am I really this bad? Am I a terrible person? Am I a terrible father? Am I? This kid's stealing the show. So, I mean, I'd like to think I'm playing an asshole version of myself on the show, but I genuinely like gear and stuff as far as it pertains to, you know, sports or athletic activities. But it's also not just about sports, and it could be anything. I told a friend of mine about the show, and she said, "Oh my God, I'm into these Japanese pens and all the cartridges, and the case that it comes in is so cool, and the way it tucks in." So it's really about any activity you like. And how much you nerd out on the details, and you can have a conversation with someone about it who's also into it, and it would be highly interesting and super boring to anyone else that would hear this conversation. But for you, you could talk about it endlessly, and that kind of encapsulates the show, where it's just being really excited about it, but then it became even when I first thought of the idea, I still didn't quite know what it was, and I thought it was going to be way more reality-based, and be more about just, we're going to go to North Face and see their new stuff and check out the new gear, and then maybe there will be some comedy stuff. I thought I might pitch it to Discovery or National Geographic or somewhere else. And then True TV at the time was doing more reality-based comedy stuff, and then the show just became way more scripted, where now it's a fake reality show with reality moments in there that are still comedy. So that's sort of what it is, even though it's still kind of hard to, even people on the show, the crew last year, when we were shooting, people would talk about, my friends are asking what I'm working on, and they say, and I tell them, and they say, oh, what is it? And I don't know how to answer it. So it's kind of even hard to explain, but that's what it is at its core, is a show about a guy that loves gear, and then it just obviously goes off the rails into different directions, and you see his home life, and
you make it weird. You do what you do best. You make it.
and the real family, and there's a fake family, because if you haven't seen the show, I want it's a documentary-ish, but my real wife doesn't want to be on camera, and I won't put my real kids on camera, so I have to hire an actress and 2 actors to play my wife and kids. So when we see my real family, their faces are blurred, and there's actors playing my family, but also for real, like the real family is actors. So it's all just, nothing is real except for me loving all the stuff.
So we have a clip that you guys made for Jon Glaser Loves Gear. Didn't air, is that right? The Fry Caramba clip?
The clip as a whole, this is bonus footage.
Okay.
I'll basically what happened, one of the episodes of the show was, so this episode started off as going into space, and I'm dressed in like a astronaut suit. I'm talking about going into space and being really excited. It was a top secret episode we've been working on. I'm going to go fly to the space station and be there for 2 weeks. Incredible, really ambitious. And then as I'm setting up the intro, a delivery guy comes with my lunch. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's okay. He can come on. I'm get my lunch, and I'm making jokes about my last land meal. Take a bite out of the sandwich, or take a bite out of the fries, and they're cold. And I get really mad, and I call the restaurant. Hey, man, your fries, you delivered cold fries, not cool. And then I know you're going to want the positive and negative feedback so you can do a better job as a restaurant. Anyway, just tell your delivery guy he didn't have a warming bag. You got to send these guys out with warming bags. I mean, that makes sense. No more, usually I'm not going to complain about it, but fries, they got to be warm. Hang up the phone, immediately freak out that they're going to fire the delivery guy. He's going to know it was me. He's going to come to kill me. And now the episode, space is canceled. Today's episode, self-defense. And so the whole episode becomes about me learning to defend myself against this guy who I think is going to come kill me. And so I put on I learn jujitsu or box. I take boxing lessons. I learn how to fire a gun. I disguise myself with a big fake nose and a wig and do a really terrible Australian accent. And then it all works out where the guy confronts me and I think he's going to kill me, but we become friends. And then we decide to design a warming bag together to keep French fries warm. And we called it the Fry Caramba. And so we decide to send hot fries into outer space where it's freezing cold. And then if they survive in space, we know we have a product that works. So in the episode, and for real, this is 100% real, because you can see this on the internet. People send shit, and it's like I sent a rugby ball, I sent a robot into space with a GoPro, and you see it in space, and then it comes back down. And so we made this stupid bag with a stupid joke on it. Oh, I'm sorry for all the swearing for your son. Called the Fry Caramba, and we sent it into outer space. And I think when people watched the show, maybe thought we faked it. We did not. We sent this bag to a guy in England who we found that does this for a living, sends stuff into space, and then retrieves it, and you get the footage. So in the actual episode that aired, we had to cut that way down to like a minute. But there's, 30 minutes of real-time footage of this guy sending the bag into space, and it's on the website if you want to watch it again, but I thought it'd be fun to show. So here he is. He shot it in England, in some beautiful countryside that we had to you can turn it up. So he had his kids, which we're watching this footage of him talking to his kids, like, yeah, go pee over in the bushes before we do this. And then he kind of started getting testy with his kids, and we were like, are we about to see child abuse in England? We're gonna have to call the English authorities? But it was fine, and he was real cute with them, and then they did a countdown. And so, he put it on this rod, and he obviously weighted it, and it's balanced, and it's on a GoPro, and it's slowly going up, and you see gorgeous countryside getting higher and higher into the sky. And this is, again, like 30 minutes, and I'm going to stop talking because I also like just the quiet of watching it. The sound is the best. Clearing the clouds. I was hoping watching this, like, what if a jet just goes flying by? That would have been so cool. Or the opposite, what if it caused an accident in the sky? But I think part of it is the guy probably lets the...
You need a permit to shoot stuff into
I think
space?
he's got to have a permit and make it known to the... I don't know who, it was just, I'm launching a thing into space.
Heads up.
It's got some kind of weather balloon that's taking it up. Now it's in space, which is absolutely insane that this stupid bag is in space. And it's so cool. Fry Caramba is in outer space.
Did you patent it?
What's that?
Is it patented?
I mean, it must be copyrighted for the show. And at some point, the balloon's going to pop and it's going to start to fall. You got to watch and find out. But there it is. And even that's cool to see. I was telling these guys back before we started, the show is a 2-camera shoot. We shot it like a reality show, 2 handheld cameras. One of our camera guys, great guy, super nice, really positive, easy to work with, great camera guy, is a flat earther. And a lot of major conversations about this footage. We're like, dude, do you see?
The curvature.
Nope. Here's why. A lot of weird conversations at lunch with him. So now it's plummeting back to Earth. Pretty soon it'll go through the clouds, but just so cool. I love this footage so much because it's cool to watch, and it's this bag. I never asked how much money it cost to do this whole thing. Because the guy that did this, he just sends you the footage unedited, and we obviously edit it how we want. But it'll be one of the funniest things I think I've ever done in my whole career, sending this bag called Fry Caramba into outer space. Coming down. He must have some kind of GPS on the camera. And even that I'm like, boom, boink.
Made it.
So now it just lands on some country road. And again, we sat here, we watched when I was in the edit. And this is maybe 10 minutes of mostly nothing. The occasional car going by, until finally at some point, someone's gonna stop. I think this lady. Hey, what's this? That's my terrible British accent. Oh, Fry Caramba. I love that it's upside down right now. Get this out of the road! You'd think someone would at least go, ooh, free GoPro. Yeah, that's some of my favorite footage. Watching the whole thing, it was so fun to watch it and just not know what was happening. It was weird watching with his kids because it was just, he's doing it with his kids, and just to see some strange dad no, put that down, yelling at his kids, oh God. Thankfully nothing happened, but anyway, I love that footage. The dumbest joke sent to space, perhaps.
It's amazing. Okay, there's another theme that we had observed from your early days on Delocated. Sandwiches. Let's go to the tape.
I do like a sandwich in my comedy. Those, I think, are potato skins.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That was a Delocated one. It's probably the only one. This was a thing I did for, I think, New York Magazine, where it was some like Christmas thing about chopping down a tree for Christmas, but then you get distracted by your sandwich. Yeah, I do like, it's just funny to me, I don't know why, if you're doing a dramatic scene and you're eating while you're doing it, it just makes me laugh very hard. Because you're clearly trying to be very serious, but you're not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And just to chastise someone dramatically with a mouthful of food just makes me laugh every time.
Is it hard to eat with a ski mask on?
It's just disgusting.
Just gross.
I will tell you this about Delocated. That ski mask, I bought that in '97 when I was I lived in Los Angeles for a year, and I bought it at some thrift store, and I had started doing a version of the character as a bit in shows, and that was in my submission packet to Conan, and the joke at the time was an impressionist, similarly smug, who fancied himself a real talent, and he still wanted to perform, but he had to protect his anonymity when he put himself out there publicly, so he wore a ski mask and pitched his voice down, and then did really hacky impressions, but then the dumb joke was that they all sound the same. Because it's just this voice. And then terrible jokes. And then that became the version of that went on to become Delocated. But the ski mask was one of a kind. There was no tag in it where we could look up the brand and contact the company and get backups. Because when you're shooting something, you want to have multiples in case something rips or tears or it gets lost or whatever. So we had this one ski mask for the whole shoot, and it was pretty much, the number one most important thing, more important than me. I mean, if I got hurt, you could put a ski mask on some actor and pitch his voice in. So it was always very nerve-wracking. We had a case we put it in.
Oh my God.
I wanted to have some special plexiglass briefcase built so you could see it inside. And it never got washed until the third season, because I was worried that it would just fall apart, and then when it was washed, it was always hand washed very delicately. Oh, I was so worried something was going to happen to it. We did a couple scenes where we had someone handmade a ski mask, and it looked close, but you could tell it was not this. It was just looked too different. So, and it ultimately wouldn't have mattered. But that was the one, and I still have it. But I remember after the final season, the final thing we shot was at a campfire, and it just stunk. It was so filthy. And I was putting that thing on my face every day, and especially we did one shoot in the summer, and it was really just nasty. But whatever, you could take it off in between takes. It wasn't that big a deal, but it was also good because if I didn't complain, no one on the crew could complain about so hot.
Right. That's a good segue into my next observation. You have a fondness for ridiculous items of clothing.
Okay. True.
Okay, I was going to say, is that news to you? That's not news to you. All right, here's the proof.
That's from Laird from HBO. That was my dad's hat.
Really?
Yep. That was something where... Well, just pause this for a second, too. I'll just say, when I got that part, I auditioned for girls. I didn't know them at all. Parks and Rec, I knew a lot of the people. I knew Amy Poehler from Chicago. I knew Mike Schur, one of the creators from SNL, just having mutual friends there. And I knew a lot. I knew Nick Offerman a little bit. I knew Aziz and Aubrey. So I was going to that. It was very familiar faces and sensibilities. Girls, I had no idea, didn't know anyone. They were super nice. It was a great job. But when I originally auditioned, it was for a dad who lives downstairs and sells drugs to make money. And then they changed it to Laird, don't do drugs. We'll talk about it another time. Pros and cons. But it became Laird, and they described it, he's a recovering junkie, wears a beanie, and I said, I have a hat that I think is perfect, and they liked it, and that ended up being a really cool thing that, my dad was so loved that it was his hat, and that hat's older than me. He wore that when he was, from Tamaqua, right? Some pretty wild photos. He was a real party guy, I think, when he was a young man. But
and even Laird's baby wore the hat, had a mini.
They made those hats. They made them, and I got to keep one, which was really awesome. Very, very cool. I love that they used it, and I loved those kid hats they made.
That's awesome.
Anyway.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this was a good one. This character was so fun to play, and that's my real hair. I had pretty sizable hair, and I remember getting the job and I said, what if we blow dry it straight and comb it back like Mel Kiper, that ESPN football guy? And they were like, yeah, we're thinking the same thing. I was like, great. And I love getting my hair worked on, and it was like 45 minutes or an hour every morning. Like, it was the best. That was the outfit that basically I wore on the Jon Glaser Loves Gear poster for the first season. Just a guy covered in an eclectic bunch of different gear, hailing a cab, get at the grocery store. Oh, God. That's a wig. Not that I would be ashamed if I wish it was my hair, but I didn't have that much. That was from some movie, The Rocker. That was fun, though. That was in Toronto. I took my son when he was 2. Oh, yeah, that's Delocated, the puppy suit. Super cute. Found out later, I felt terrible about this. We found out after this. We always try with the comedy idea, like, we'll always ask, has this been done before? Has anyone heard of it being done? Has anyone seen it? Whatever. Sometimes now with the internet, you can Google it and you'll find out, oh, this so-and-so did this. This, we found out later that Andy Richter, who I'm friends with, did a version of it, completely different joke, but basically the same thing. And I felt so bad. And I wrote him. He's like, I don't give a shit. Similar ideas happen all the time. Don't worry about it. I'm like, I know, but I just feel bad, and I wanted you to know that it wasn't intentional. But still very funny. The premise of that was, so in Delocated, if you don't know the joke, is my character was wanted by the Russian mob, and then they kidnap someone, and I'm going to go rescue that person. And we find out that the Russian mob, they love puppies. And so we decide if I'm covered in puppies, they're not going to shoot me. And so I go in, I'm like, everyone be cool. And I got all these puppies, and they're all like, look how cute that one is. No one shoot. They're like debating, is that like a husky? No, it's a oh, so but it was super hot. That was a summer shoot, and I was broiling. If you go back, the photo on the right, I'm just like, just suffering so hot. So fun, though. Good Guys Club. Oh, boy. The Women's World Cup team had just won, and I put that outfit on. That's a sweet wig and a sweet beard. That's Neon Joe. That was an early, like, even before the first season, I thought it'd be funny if Neon Joe, because all those, like, well, I don't want to say stupid or not stupid, but like Tommy Bahama, Maui Jims, all those, like, yeah. And I thought, Oahu Joe's, the idea of Neon Joe, a guy that was a werewolf hunter starting his own Hawaiian themed line of clothes, made me laugh, and then we got to do it. I will say I love this outfit so much. Doing the show was so fun. We obviously treated it very seriously, even though it was a comedy, and that to me is where the comedy comes from, just the drama of it. But this outfit was so awesome. It just turned out so good. It looked so kick-ass and rad to me. And we just, found all these different types of clothes, put the outfit together, and then the wardrobe, the costume designer, they like triple dyed them in this neon fabric paint, and it just turned out, I think, stunning. It looked so cool, and they made the hood. Oh, it just looked awesome. It's just the way the different fabrics took to the paint and all the details and love it.
So I wanted to ask, I was like, how much of this is costume and how much is you? And it kind of seems like there's a marriage of the two loves.
For sure, it's a lot of both. And then, you can, when you're doing something like that, especially Neon Joe, once you get the costume down, you get so much more of the attitude. Delocated was a lot simpler, but we did a lot with obviously putting like the beard and the wig on the ski mask and did other dumb things with it. And yeah, they were both extremely fun. I loved, anyway.
Is it true that Neon Joe was inspired by a pair of pajama pants?
Kind of. They were, the way Neon Joe came about, and I've told the story a bunch, maybe you've heard it, maybe not, but when I went on Jimmy Fallon's show to promote the series finale of Delocated, I just wanted to do something stupid for the interview segment, just to amuse myself more than anything. And I just thought it'd be funny to go on and just say that, I'm sad Delocated's done, but I'm really excited for my new show. It's called Neon Joe Werewolf Hunter, and I'm dressed as the character right now. And I was wearing a neon hoodie and a neon knit cap from American Apparel, and then a pair of these Coors Light, basically sweats. or they looked like PJ pants, but they said Coors Light all over them. I found them on like some website that just sends all beer company clothes, hats, tanks, t-shirts, flip-flops, whatever. And so it was 100% fake. It was a total joke. And at the time I thought, I could see Adult Swim seeing this and they'll know it's a joke, but they'll think it's funny, and it sounds like a show they'd make called Neon Joe Werewolf Hunter. And that's exactly what happened.
It was a trick.
Yeah, they got in touch, and I wasn't even doing it to like try to get a show. I just thought this would be funny.
Yeah.
And then they called and said like, hey, that sounds like a show we'd make. You wanna write it? It's like, yeah, sure. We literally had no idea at all. There was nothing. There was zero. It was weird to just sit down and try to figure out the show.
Yeah.
And I remember it just seemed funny to me it was a fun challenge to start from scratch and try to figure out what it could be. And it's a whole lot of nothing. But, it just started to become very much to me like I liked the idea of him being a guy that just goes from town to town and helps towns solve their werewolf problems. They'll get in touch with him, come help. And so that felt like Quint from Jaws.
Right.
So I remember watching Jaws a ton when I was writing the pilot episode. The pilot is an episode that you write to try to pick up the show. So watching a ton of Jaws and a lot of American Werewolf in London, both great movies, but I love Jaws I know it's such a great movie. If you've never seen it, see it. But even if you've seen it, watch it. It's so good. It's such a well-done film. And there's all the stories about, happy accidents about this didn't work, and so they didn't show the shark, and it was better. But still, it's such a great movie. But we got really lucky. There's the Quint scene, such a great performance, first of all. Just incredible acting, masterful performances. From also looking up first on YouTube, just Quint scenes, and then I eventually just bought the movie. But holy shit, there's all these just terrible actors doing monologues, and they put them on YouTube, I guess for their professors to see, and I hate to judge bad acting because it's just not fair, but oh my God, there is just some bad Quint monologues.
Really?
Oh, and they're just some of them so serious and just poor guys. They're trying. We're all just trying. But very amusing. But yeah, what a great, that first scene where you meet him. If you watch Neon Joe, we basically did that scene. It's almost exact, not shot for shot, but very similarly done. And we found some town hall at this old closed down army base in Queens. There's several of them. They're really cool. And it had almost the exact same paint color as the town hall in Jaws. It was really cool, like this mint green. We didn't have to change anything. But we pretty much matched that scene. And it's an awesome, anyway, I'm going on and on about it, but it's such a great performance. That everybody in that movie, Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss. Anyway.
That's awesome.
There's a great outtake from Jaws, a cut scene where you see Robert Shaw. It's made me laugh so hard because here's this really tough character, and there's a scene that got cut from the movie where he goes to a piano store in town to get piano wire for his fishing line, because you got to have strong wire to get a shark. And it's there. You see a car pull up and stop, and so they frame it below the bottom of the car, and 2 feet come into frame, and then it pans up to reveal Quint, and he's wearing clogs. Not like goofy clogs, like Dansko, like good clogs, but it just made me laugh so hard that they chose, that was, I'm assuming, just a choice to have his character wear those shoes. And so I had a pair of clogs painted neon, because I wanted Neon Joe to be similarly tough but have his clogs. And I have them
Can't beat
somewhere.
that arch support.
They're so comfortable. But I loved that.
Okay, I have a final observation of your work. You have mocked or murdered Paul Rudd in so many things. Mm-hmm. What? Please explain.
Well, the first one, it's happened. He's died in the first episode of all of the 3 shows I've made. And the way it started was, this is in 2006 when I made the way I made Delocated, or the way I sold Delocated was I knew it would be a tough, just to say the idea and turn in a script. You had to hear the character and you have to see it to really get it. So I just took it upon myself to make a demo that I could turn in to really sell the character, which for sure helped sell the show. Because the head of the network told me later, he's like, I remember hearing the idea and I thought, no way, that's a sketch. It can't sustain a season. So in this demo, you just get little snippets, a lot of visuals of the character where you get a sense of the attitude and the smugness and the jerkiness. And at the time, I was living above a friend's clothing store, and she let us shoot this scene, and we ended up just lifting this and putting it into the pilot. We didn't reshoot it. And the scene is, my character is, and another common theme is divorce, but whatever, my parents were divorced, happens all the time. So my character in Delocated is divorced, and he's psyched, he's out on his own, he's buying some new cool sweaters. And he's at this fashionable store, and there's Paul Rudd. And he just starts, oh my God, Paul Rudd, such a fan, and really listing all of his credits, and much like someone does when they meet a famous person. I loved you in this, and doing a lot of obscure credits, and being really annoying and bothering him, and Paul's just, oh yeah. And I didn't know Paul even that well at the time. I just kind of knew him through a couple friends, and we had hung out a little bit, but I just reached out, and he's a really super nice guy, loves doing just weird comedy stuff, does it a lot, and he just said yes. He just, showed up, and we did it for an hour. And so in that first scene, we're just talking in this clothing store, and then he gets shot, and we're all like, what? And then across the street is the Russian hitman that's trying to kill me. But he's so inept, he kills Paul Rudd instead. And so he dies in Delocated. And then when I got to make Neon Joe, I just thought it'd be funny if he died. This is a spoiler, sorry, but
First episode.
so he gets killed at the top of Neon Joe, which is part of that whole town hall scene. Everyone's scared because there's a mysterious murder. It must have been a creature. So much he was torn apart, and they're all upset. It's Paul Rudd was killed, and then everyone's of course like, I loved him in Ant-Man. And oh my God. So there's like another just long listing of his credits, and then again he dies in Gear, but it's a much more like it's a news article. Where it's like, you gotta look at this, and I'm in the middle of like an argument with like trying to convince my wife, and it's a very serious conversation, and I get interrupted to find out that Paul Rudd's dead, and I get so upset.
It's awesome. I highly recommend all of these shows.
Or just watch those scenes if you don't like the show.
So that is just about all the time we have, but I wanted to end on, if we could do like a lightning round of questions that I have for you.
Sure.
All right.
Here we go.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Don't overthink them.
Okay, I'll try.
What's your favorite
I tend
color?
to ramble, obviously.
Okay.
Favorite color, I'll just say gray.
Gray?
I like it. I mean, look at what I'm wearing. Pretty
right.
much all. I like a neutral earth tone.
All right. What's your middle name?
Matthew.
Nice.
Jonathan Matthew. Very biblical. Very biblical for a Jewish person.
What's your favorite pizza topping?
Onions.
Gross.
Gross? Delicious.
Oh man.
All right, the baby pizza, the baby onion pizza. Oh my God, so good. From this place in our neighborhood. Oh, so good. Or a high quality olive. It can't be just canned garbage.
Favorite kind of
I'm making a new show. It's called Olive Snobs. It's going to be on Food Network. Really.
Favorite kind of candy?
Dark chocolate with sea salt. It's another show, Chocolate Snobs. That's just the first thing that came to mind. This, Lunt, L-U-N-D-T? Oh my God. Dark chocolate with sea salt. It's so good.
What's the title of your pretend memoir?
Oh God.
Quick.
He liked sandwich humor.
I will buy copies for the library.
Great.
Done. All right, Parks and Rec reference, Tom Haverford or Andy Dwyer? One or the other. Who are you going to pick?
Wait,
You forgot who they are.
Tom is Aziz, right?
Aziz
Who's
or
Andy Dwyer?
Chris Pratt?
Oh, is that his? I never knew his last.
Andy and April. Okay, so April's husband or Tom Haverford? I feel like you're going to go Tom Haverford now because you don't remember Andy.
Andy for sure.
All right. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Cake or pie?
Oh boy. Pie.
Yeah. After Thanksgiving, it's hard to say cake.
Well, just if it's a good, I think I don't love cake usually, but if it's a good cake, but pie, yeah, pie. Okay. There's also a really good pie place near where I live. Oh my God. It's so good. Holy shit.
Book or movie?
Probably gotta go book, right?
Not.
Can't say movie to library.
Are you pandering?
Can't say movie to library, yeah.
Track or field?
Field.
Credit or debit?
Credit.
Rain or shine?
Well, shine implies summer, but I hate summer. But shine when it's not hot. Let's say shine.
Name your all-time favorite public library. Don't blow it.
Oh, man. I'll say a very quick tangent. My son and I went to the game yesterday, and we brought my stepdad, who used to work here, had a really beautiful Ann Arbor District Library fleece blanket that we took with us just in case it was cold, which it wasn't too cold, but we used it as a cushion, and it just said AADL on it.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure people who were going to notice were going to think it was like some Anti-Defamation League blanket. Which I thought would have been just the best blanket to take to a football game. Pretty aggressive choice. Conversation starter at the ball game. Let's go. We'll go Ann Arbor District Library.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
This event was recorded November 26, 2017 at the Downtown Library in Ann Arbor, Michigan.